Badass of the Week is an iHeartRadio podcast produced by High Five Content.
Medea's having a bad day. She followed her husband Jason to a new city, had 2 kids with him, and started to make a life for herself. And then he announces that he's leaving Medea for another woman. He's such a climber. This new wife is none other than Creusa, Princess of Corinth. Maybe it's best for Medea to accept this development and send a nice wedding present. She chooses a robe of the finest silk with intricate embroidery, truly a garment worthy of royalty. And then Medea adds a personal touch. She takes a small, elegant bottle and delicately sprinkles the garment with, not perfume. Oh no. Medea covers the robe with her own handcrafted poison. Creusa dons the robe and starts to spin it to feel it twirl, but flames shoot out from the robe and engulf Creusa in fire. She flails. She tries to stop, drop, and roll. But Medea's vindictive magic is too strong.
Hello, and welcome back to Badass of the Week. My name is Ben Thompson, and I am here with my co-host, Dr. Pat Larish. Pat, it is very good to have you back. Welcome back.
It's good to be back. Yeah.
So you were gone last week. I did an episode with our producer Andrew, it was fun. We talked about Australia, but you were not traveling to Australia.
No, I was not. I was traveling to Turkey.
Wow. Okay. So how was Turkey?
It was amazing. It was amazing. We saw a lot of Ottoman stuff, a lot of ancient stuff, got to know modern Istanbul. I drank a lot of Turkish tea, which was grown in Turkey. I didn't know this, but they grow tea in Turkey in the Riza area, which is over on the Black Sea.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, neither did I.
Did you get to see the Viking graffiti at the Hagia Sophia?
I did. It's on the second floor. It's on a railing. Some bored Viking carved his name into the railing. They have it under glass. They have a sign showing it off. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I've always wanted to see that. I think we might have talked about it on a previous episode, that the Varangian Guard were Vikings that were bodyguards to the Emperor of Byzantium. And because the Emperor had to go to church, the Vikings had to go to church as well. But they were pagans. They didn't believe in any of this stuff. They couldn't understand the language. So they would just sit there and some guy, I can't remember his name, Helgi or something, he carved his name into the pew on the second floor of the Hagia Sophia. And I've always wanted to go see it.
Yeah, it's there.
What other badass podcast connections? Because we've talked about a few people involved in Turkish history. Yeah.
So Ataturk is all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
It was recently the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Republic of Turkey, and there are banners up. So there are always images of Ataturk all over the place anyway. Like you walk into a cafe, there's a picture of Ataturk behind the cashier, because that's a thing. But I think they had even more than usual. They had huge banners up celebrating 100 years. Yeah.
Cool. And then you went to Troy as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Where we
How
got to see, that was fun. We got to see the archaeological site itself, and we got to see the large trench that badass subject Heinrich Schliemann dug using dynamite, among other things.
As you do in early 20th century archaeology.
Yeah, late 19th century. And, to be fair, he refined his technique for his later expeditions.
After he dynamited Troy.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, there's a joke that Heinrich Schliemann did more damage to Troy than the Greeks did.
And you told me that at Troy they're working on building a Trojan horse.
Yes. Yeah, they have already built it, and it's usually displayed outside the museum, so you can see it when you come in, and it looks a lot like the one from the Hollywood movie. But when we were there, it was actually out for repairs.
Oh gosh.
So, but I did get a little like, I don't know, 3-inch high model from the gift shop. So, that's got to count for something, right?
Nice. Yes. Totally counts.
Yes.
So the character we're talking about today is a kind of infamous and divisive woman from Greek mythology, the sorceress queen Medea. Did she have connections to Turkey? I'm trying to do a transition here, but
yeah. Well, I don't know of any myths that take place in Turkey itself.
Because she has some Persian connections.
She has some Persian connections, yep. And so, neighboring area. She lived in Colchis, which is on the Black Sea. It's actually now part of Georgia. But I mean, the tea that I drank was grown in the region of Turkey in the east on the Black Sea coast. So it's, general neighborhood.
Okay. All right. That works for me.
So, yeah, if any of you have seen the recent Barbie movie, one of the characters goes into this spontaneous rant about how hard it is to be a woman in today's society. You have to be, twice as good and whatever. You have to, quote, never get old, never be rude, never show off, never be selfish, never fall down, never fail, never show fear, never get out of line. And our character, Medea, is credited with some badass speeches of her own. Early on in the drama by Euripides called Medea, she goes on a rant to the women of Corinth saying, oh yeah, we women have it really hard. We have to, as she puts it, buy a master for our bodies, which is a creepy but kind of a way of acknowledging the patriarchal marriage constraints that women of her day found themselves in. And she says later on that she would rather die in battle 3 times than give birth once. So that's Medea math for you, And, a lot of people who knew Euripides' play and saw the Barbie movie said, oh, okay, yeah, it's not exactly, you can always find differences, but
there's some similarities between her speech and the speech from the movie.
Yeah, and the character who gives the speech in the movie, that's the mom in the Our World part. And she's a likable character. She's a very sympathetic character, and she's not really out to destroy anyone.
Yeah, and that's not so much the case with Medea, is it?
No.
Medea loves destroying people. I will read a quote that is not related to the Barbie movie, but it is also attributed to Medea. It says, "In craft and in darkness I will hunt his blood. Sword in hand, full-willed and sure to die, I will yet live to slay them. For all of their strength, they shall not stab my soul and laugh thereafter." And that is the kind of person we're talking about. And that's the kind of story that we are going to tell after this commercial break.
So, hey, welcome back. Who is this Medea? And no, we don't mean the Tyler Perry character. This is Medea from Greek mythology. She's a priestess of Hecate whom you may know as Hecate if you listen to Shakespeare plays, or Hecate, whatever. She's a priestess of Hecate who is a goddess associated with the moon, darkness, witchcraft, cool stuff like that.
Cool sorcery and necromancy, that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. And she's not just any run-of-the-mill witch or sorceress. She's also a princess of the city-state of Colchis, which is on the Black Sea. It's modern-day Georgia, if you're looking at a contemporary map. And she's got lots of skills. She's good at lots of things. And I'm not going to tell you what those things are, because you will see her various skills come into play as we tell the story.
But they are all related to Hecate kinds of things. That being sorcery and necromancy and witchcraft and cheap canned Mexican beer.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, we can work in the Mexican beer somehow. Yeah.
Well, Tecate.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's related.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah. But yeah, but I'm thinking like she mixes some potions here and there. And,
Okay.
We don't have proof that there wasn't beer involved. You just mix the magic herbs in some liquid.
Generally, witchcraft involves wine, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. So her father is Aeetes, who is the king of Colchis, and her grandfather, which is to say Aeetes' father, is Helios, the sun god, which maybe is a little ironic given that she's a devotee of Hecate associated with the night. Hey.
Just really oppositional defiance to her parents.
Sure. Yeah. Oh my goodness, yes. And she's from a very interesting family. Her aunt is Circe, or in Greek, Kyrke. And Circe is the sorceress that you may know from such great hit as Homer's Odyssey. So Circe is the one who turns the sailors into pigs. So Medea comes from an interesting family.
Yeah. She turns Odysseus's guys into pigs and only offers to turn them back if he'll sleep with her, I think, is the deal. Yeah,
and that's happening on some remote island somewhere.
The women in this family have a knack for negotiation, I think. We'll see that later, too, with Medea.
They do. Yes. Yeah. And negotiation, you said earlier that Medea's skills all had to do with Hecate and witchcraft and necromancy. And negotiation she also has negotiation skills and just sort of general cleverness and street smarts, which you don't need to worship a goddess of the night to get. So she's most famous for being associated with Jason. And Jason is a legit Greek hero. I mean, Jason is an everyday name these days. Maybe Jason is the guy you did group work with in English class in college, Yeah,
I know at least 3 Jasons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And not all of them are characters in horror movies. So Medea is in Colchis, busy worshiping Hecate, mixing potions, being princess of Colchis, and this ship pulls into port. It's a pretty impressive ship. It has these big eyes on the prow, eyes painted on,
Yeah, like you see on Greek warships.
Yeah, exactly.
Of the time period, those triremes.
Yeah, it looks cool. They may have been believed to avert evil. Okay. It also just looks cool. The ship pulls into port. Maybe it's a slow news day. What's going on? She likes to know what's going on. And she meets their leader, Jason, or Iason in Greek. He's interesting. Okay, Medea's intrigued. She goes over to find out his deal. Jason, I'm imagining him doing the thing that happens a lot in Greek epics, where if you have a stranger coming into town, you offer them hospitality, and then you invite them to tell you about themselves.
And he must have been an interesting guy, because the Argo is like an all-star cast of Greek heroes. So he's the leader of this ship, but it's crewed by like a bunch of famous Greek heroes, including at one point Hercules, who we've talked about before. And they've been through some stuff already. They saw they got past the harpies. They had the Stymphalian birds with the iron that shoot like iron darts at you. They're like metal birds. They've had like some adventures to get here. Like a mini Odyssey kind of thing.
Yeah, adventures you can imagine being animated by Ray Harryhausen.
And I do.
Yep. All-star crews. You've got Hercules providing some brawn and also maybe some ingenuity. You've got, every good ship, you're going to sing sea shanties, right? So it's not just some random ensign playing a cheap guitar. This is Orpheus, the legendary musician of myth, like, the rock star of Greek mythology, Yeah. And they've also got Atalanta, who is famous for winning a running
that's right. I forgot she was an Argonaut.
Yeah. And I mentioned that because
one of the greatest archers in Greek of all the Greek heroes.
Yeah, total badass. Happens to be a woman, and she's on the ship with these dudes.
Killed the Caledonian boar.
Yep. So she's got skills, and they've also got the protection of the goddess Hera.
Which is hard to get, because the goddess Hera does not give that out easily.
Yes. And Jason kind of got it on two fronts. So one way he got Hera's favor is he was nice to her. She disguised himself as an old woman who had trouble walking and needed to cross a river. The bridge was out. Jason offers to carry this random old woman on his shoulders across the river, and he does it. Turns out one of his sandals got stuck in the mud, but he's helping out a fellow human, right?
Yeah.
So on one hand, Hera's impressed with his Boy Scoutness or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's nice, right? That's what you want out of a hero. You want him to do the right thing and make good decisions, help people out when they need help.
And this is Hera, so she also is motivated by spite. She has a grudge against Jason's stepdad, Peleus, and this will become relevant later.
That sounds more like Hera.
That sounds more like Hera, yeah. So anyway, so you imagine Jason telling all this to Medea, like, oh yeah, this is my story, Does he mention that Hera is his patron goddess? Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Is it a good pickup line? I don't know. Wow, Your Highness. So my dad, Aeson, was the rightful king of Iolcus. You may have heard of it. It's a town in Thessaly in Greece. But my dad's stepbrother, Peleus, usurped the throne. And so my dad sent me far away so I'd be out of danger. But, there are details I'll tell you over another round of drinks. Now that I'm all a man, I thought, why don't I try to reclaim the throne that rightfully belongs to my dad, and then therefore eventually to me? Well, Hera's helping me. She hates Peleus because he had disrespected her temple, blah, blah, blah.
I'm totally secretly a prince. Just take my word for it.
Yeah. One way or another, I got Peleus to promise, maybe, that if I went and got the legendary golden fleece for him, he would give me the throne. Now, the golden fleece is a fleece that is golden.
What is a fleece?
It's a sheepskin.
Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes fleece refers to just the wool. Here, I think it's easiest to imagine it as the actual sheepskin, like the sort of thing that you would imagine on your car seat, if you're one of those people who has a sheepskin cover on your car seat.
Okay.
The word in Greek makes it clear that it's the sheepskin and not just a bunch of golden wool that you shaved off of the sheep.
Okay.
Because this makes it easier to carry around. So it's a thing. It's the MacGuffin. It's the thing that Jason has to go and get.
Does it do anything? Does it have any magical powers, or is it just pretty?
I think it just represents a cool thing that is rare and hard to get, and also happens to be guarded by a dragon.
Okay, sure. It's just like a symbol that, like, you got it. You fought this dragon and you got the thing.
Yeah. Like, he could have just as easily said, oh, get me a paperclip used by the secretary of the Queen of the Amazons or something like that,
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, so you can't just go down to the Agora and do some comparison shopping around various shepherds' stalls or whatever. You have to go to a very specific place. Now, Jason is from Iolcus. That's where Peleus is currently king. Jason's trying to get the throne of Iolcus. And the Golden Fleece is held in Colchis, Colchis, which is on the Black Sea. And that's why he's on a boat. It's easier. Well, it's not easy to sail there, but it makes more sense to sail there than to go there by foot.
Their journey is complete. They've arrived and they meet the princess, who is Medea. And Jason is talking to Medea and kind of flirting with her a little bit to kind of get a feel for how hard is it going to be for your dad to hand over this golden fleece so that I can go be king of my kingdom. So how does that meeting go?
Well, Medea could be loyal to her dad and say, oh, well, let me tell you something, dude. We're not giving up the golden fleece. Or she could say, you're cute. Let me help you. Maybe she's bored. I don't know.
I get the impression that Jason was charismatic. I get this feeling about him that, like, he's this kind of, because he's not anybody really, but all of these great heroes, Orpheus and Hercules and all these guys, they take orders from him. Like, he's the commander of this ship, but he is really just some guy. he's a disenfranchised prince, but he doesn't have any of the princely powers or wealth or any of that stuff. He's kind of like, hey guys, can you come help me? Will you risk your lives for me to come get this magic artifact? And all of these people do it, and she seems sympathetic to him as well. So my guess is that Jason was probably like a pretty cool dude, like if you got to know him, or at least he came across as a pretty cool dude.
Yeah, I think my students would say he had Riz. I'm not sure I'm using Riz correctly, but I'd be willing to try it out and then run it by my students, and they can say, Dr. Larish, you're using Riz correctly, or yeah. But yeah, he's got people skills.
He's got something.
He's got something. Yeah. And also the favor of Hera,
Yes.
which is maybe a mythological way of saying he's got charisma.
Yeah, I mean, he won Hera over, right? That is not easy to do. Nor Medea, I imagine, either.
Yeah. If she doesn't want to help you, she's going to not help you.
Yeah, and I get the feeling that Medea doesn't act like this every time some ship comes into a port with like a pretty boat captain.
Yeah. Maybe she wants to show off a little bit. So the Golden Fleece, she's kind of observing Jason as he goes right to King Aeetes and says, "Oh, Your Majesty." And Jason says, "Oh, Your Majesty, could I borrow the Golden Fleece or whatever?" And Aeetes says, well, you have to do several things before we let you take the Golden Fleece. First, and this is going to sound a little bit like the labors of Hercules, except there aren't 12. There are much fewer. First of all, so you see that team of oxen over there? I want you to plow a field with them. And Jason's like, okay. Now, Ben, when you think of oxen, what are the dangers you associate with oxen?
Horns. Generally horns. They're like, I'm picturing like a big bull, right? I mean,
yeah.
Plowing a field with 2 oxen it seems like a skill set you should have if you live in this time period, if you live in ancient Greece around whatever time period this myth is supposed to be set in. Doesn't seem like it would be that crazy of a task. This isn't like fighting the Hydra.
No. I mean, is this just Aeetes? Yeah, he just wants some help around the house, and he figures you might as well exploit this guy who
help this old lady across the street, and we'll see
get
if
a few
you're
favors
worthy.
out of him. Yeah. So the oxen, they do have horns, and they also breathe fire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's new. That's different.
That's and Medea whips up this ointment that protects Jason against the fire. So he puts the lotion on himself and he's protected. He yokes the oxen to the plow and he plows the field. Okay. Side quest number 1. Yeah.
Yeah. Potion of fire resistance.
Yes.
Medea saves the day.
So say she does, but
so she has decided that she's going to help Jason get this fleece.
Yeah, she has. Yeah, for whatever reason that makes sense to her. Now, the other thing Jason has to do is, once you've plowed a field, what do you do with it? Well, you plant things in it, obviously. So Aeetes hands him a bag full of dragon's teeth.
Whoa.
And this isn't like the name of some grain or something. These are like teeth from dragons. Okay. And he says, okay, yeah, you have to sow these, toss them in the ground like you would do any other sort of seed or grain. And okay, that's weird.
Does it grow dragons?
Not quite, but you're very close. Medea pulls Jason aside and she says, hey, okay, those dragon's teeth, when you plant them in the ground, do you know what's going to happen? Soldiers are going to come out of the ground. They're just going to sprout from the ground. And Jason's like, oh, okay. Because he has a whole bag full of dragon's teeth. This is going to be a lot of soldiers. And Medea says, here's an idea. Throw a rock into the middle of the group of soldiers once they come out of the ground. And that'll just confuse them. And they'll start fighting with one another. And they'll be distracted and you'll be safe.
All right. So she gives him some kind of slightly magical rock.
Or just the soldiers are, they're kind of weird zombie skeletal soldiers, but they've still got human nature. So, look, whoa, strange noise. Whoa, what's up with that? Whoa, oh, you guys threw it. Did you guys throw it? Or maybe Jason shouted, "Oh, hey, Taylor Swift tickets or something."
Okay, so that's I assume it's going to work because Medea.
It does. It does. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he plants the seeds. Skeletal warriors emerge. This is one of my favorite scenes from the movie. And he throws a rock, and they all start killing each other.
Mm-hmm.
All right, second labor done.
Second labor done. And third and final, I hope that's not too much of a spoiler, we have to get to the Golden Fleece. And I mentioned before that it was guarded by a dragon. I mean, where do you think those dragon teeth come from? You know, either this dragon or its relatives. What do you think Medea does?
I assume she gives him some kind of special knowledge to defeat the dragon.
Yes. Knowledge, in this case, in the form of a potion. She gives him a potion to sprinkle over the dragon and a spell to chant. And this lulls the dragon to sleep. And that means Jason can just tiptoe in and yoink the Golden Fleece and tiptoe on out. Success.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then what happens? I assume her dad's not going to actually let Jason leave with the Golden Fleece, is he?
No, he's not. In some alternate universe, maybe he'd be like, "Okay, kid, you've proved yourself enough."
You
sure,
win.
Yeah.
Take it.
You know, not in this universe, not in this timeline.
No.
So King Aeetes sees that Jason has started to leave with the Golden Fleece. Medea's with him, and okay, there's a lot going on here. So he sends a bunch of soldiers after them, and he puts his son, Absyrtus, which is Medea's brother, at the head of those soldiers. He says, "Okay, son, your sister's acting up again. Just go get the fleece back, you know."
Kill all those guys, get the fleece back, get your sister back.
Yeah. Now, if you were Medea and still on Team Jason, what would you do?
Does she have some kind of potion for let's get the hell out of here?
That would be a logical assumption. She may very well have some sort of let's get the hell out of Dodge potion, but what she actually does is she manages to kill her brother and chop up his body in pieces and scatter those pieces of his body all over the landscape. This distracts the soldiers. It distracts her father, King Aeetes, who has to go and collect all of the pieces of his son, Absyrtus, so he can give Absyrtus a decent funeral, because you can't just leave him lying in bits and pieces all over the place. And, we said Medea was a controversial figure, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm just picturing like an Easter egg hunt for arms and legs and stuff.
Yes. Yes.
And yeah. I guess in these days you had to bury the body together, right? You had to get them all if you were going to give him a good burial. Wow, that is diabolical.
It's diabolical, yeah. Mm-hmm. In practical terms, this gives Medea and Jason a chance to get away.
Wow, so Jason comes to town. He has really, it seems like, no special powers or gifts or abilities except to make Medea like him. And then she helps him complete all of the labors. He gets the fleece. Her dad tries to have him killed, but then she comes up with a slightly unorthodox way of distracting him so that they can escape. But they get away and they have the Golden Fleece. And now he's just got to go back and be the king, right?
You would think.
Yeah.
Right?
This seems like they sail off into the sunset and live happily ever after, right?
Let's find out.
We will take a look at that happily ever after this commercial break.
So, we saw Medea and Jason just having committed an awfully bloody and gruesome murder of Medea's brother to distract her father. We saw Medea and Jason escaping from Colchis with the Golden Fleece, hopping on the Argo and sailing back to Iolcus, Jason's hometown, where he is the son of the rightful king and is trying to reclaim his throne, which he thinks he's entitled to. Does everything go smoothly? Probably not.
They do have a few. They do have a few adventures on the way home too.
They do.
So they do stop and visit Aunt Circe. She absolves everyone on the Argo of all of their sins, and nobody comments on the irony or the fratricide or any of that stuff.
Yeah. In one version of the myth, Circe kind of gives Medea a little bit of a talking to. She's like, okay, I'm not completely happy, but I'll do it because you're my niece.
I'll absolve of your sins, fine.
Yeah.
Killed my nephew,
don't do this again, okay? Don't do this again.
As long as you've learned your lesson. They pass the island of the Sirens, and that's where Orpheus and his music come into play, and they're able to get past the Sirens. There's one story where they land on Crete and meet King Minos of Minotaur fame. And
that
King
guy,
Minos,
yeah.
And King Minos has this giant steel or iron golem named Talos. And Talos, King Minos says you can't leave the island until somebody can beat Talos at an arm wrestling competition. And Talos is a giant, basically robot. So Medea once again saves the day. She pulls a nail out of Talos's heel, and it bleeds all the oil out of him. And then the golem's broken, or the robot's broken, and they can defeat it and sail away. So
it's not Talos's fault.
It's not Talos's fault. He was unbeatable until Medea murdered him.
Yeah, Medea is an unstoppable force.
Deactivated him. Yes, she is an unstoppable force.
Yeah.
An indestructible mechanical construct, and she just pulled the plug on him, drained him like a bathtub.
Yeah.
But then they get back. They make it back. They've had all these adventures. They're great heroes. The Argo's not in great shape when it returns, but they're here, and Jason's got the golden fleece, and now we just have to convince old stepdad to hand over the crown.
Yes. You'd think it might be just a matter of asking nicely, maybe with a lawyer in the room. No. Jason scopes out the situation. Medea scopes out the situation. Jason's father, Aeson, is still alive. He's in prison because Peleus threw him in prison, but maybe couldn't bring himself to actually kill him. And Medea, she's doing a vibe check, and she's thinking, okay, what's in Jason's best interests? Because right now her fortunes are aligned with Jason's. And she's also thinking, okay, what's the best outcome for me, Medea? Because she's always looking out for number one. So she thinks, maybe I should get in good with my potential father-in-law. So Aeson, the older generation, he's Jason's father. Okay, everyone ages. And Aeson, he's been through a lot of stress, so he's really not in good shape. He's been imprisoned. His son went off on what he assumed was probably a fatal quest. He assumed Jason would meet with non-successfulness.
Which he almost did many times.
Yes, yeah. And, these days, Jason would just be, texting Aeson several times a day, but they didn't have that in those days. So poor Aeson is alone with his thoughts and his worries and his anxieties. He's it's showing. He's been through a lot. Poor guy. Medea says, hey, I'm good with potions and stuff. I have this treatment that might make you feel a bit younger. What she does is she basically does a blood transfusion. She takes Aeson's blood, infuses his blood with magical herbs, and circulates it back into his system. And then he jumps up, whoa, I feel like a new man.
Picturing like a plasma transfusion.
Yes. Yeah, except with magic herbs.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, so things are looking good for Aeson. But on the political front, King Peleus is refusing to give up the throne. Absolutely no one is surprised by this development. Now, if you were Medea, how would you deal with that?
Well, because it's Medea, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and guess with violence.
Yes, with a side order of subterfuge.
Okay. So what does Medea do? I'm realizing that the Golden Fleece really has no value at all. It has no powers or anything. Like, it didn't have any magical abilities. The magical weapon that Jason found in Colchis was Medea. That was the most important thing that he found there and brought back with him.
Yes. Yeah, the
She's
real
way more
fleece.
useful than like the golden sheepskin.
Yep. Yeah, the real golden fleece is the amoral sorceress we found along the way. So Peleus has some daughters, and they're loyal to their father. I mean, why shouldn't they be, you know? Medea, she finds a ram, and she somehow makes sure that Peleus's daughters catch wind of what she's doing. She gets a ram. She kills the ram and she chops up the ram. Peleus's daughters are thinking, oh, is she like cooking dinner? Is she going to sacrifice the lamb to the gods? Like, what's up with this? She chops up the ram, puts the ram, you know, the adult male sheep, in a cauldron with water and this herb, that herb, the other herb. Maybe she says some words over it. Maybe she moves her hands and gestures. Abracadabra. Out of the cauldron jumps the ram, but as a lamb, like totally rejuvenated, like not just like a little bit of a facial or something. This ram has decades or whatever the equivalent is in sheep years off its life.
It's like the phoenix, yeah, it just gets back to normal.
Whoa.
Regeneration.
Yeah. Yeah. And Peleus's daughters are looking at it like, whoa. Whoa. She sees them and she's like, oh, hey. Yeah, I did that. And she manages to get them to say, hey, Medea? It's Medea, right? We're pronouncing it right? Yeah, okay. So Medea, wow, could you do this for our dad? And she's like, okay, sure. So maybe she cleans out the same cauldron, fills it with water, and gets Peleus's daughters to do the same thing that she did to the ram, namely, chop him up into pieces. I'm telling the myth. I cannot imagine the thought process, but okay, whatever.
This is all part of it. Don't worry.
Yep. Yeah, I'm telling the story. I'm committed to the story. So the daughters of Peleus chop him up into little pieces, throw him in the cauldron. Medea adds the water. She says, whoa. She says, abracadabra or whatever magical word she probably put on a good show. And does Peleus jump out as a, I don't know, like dude in his early 20s, all fit and ready for a new lease on life?
It's just a lamb. Just another lamb jumps out.
Not even that.
Oh.
Zip. Nada.
Did not respond.
Because Medea, whoopsie doodle, forgot to add the magic herbs.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I knew I was forgetting something.
Yeah. So instead of, a young rejuvenated Peleus, we've got Peleus stew, and it's not even flavored very much. I'm sorry, tasteless joke. Oh, too soon.
Sorry, guys. I don't know how to tell you this, but you chopped your dad up for nothing.
No. Yeah, I would hate to be Peleus's daughters in that moment.
It's diabolical. It's so evil. It's so evil. Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, Medea.
Yeah. I mean, she is very much on brand. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Now, Peleus was not just, some guy who, had daughters who... He was the king. Yeah. So, golly. He's no longer king. The thing is, you would think that this would make space for Jason to get on the throne. Actually, it also makes Jason somehow a murderer. Medea's the one who actually did it, but okay.
Yeah, it is regicide. You did kill a king.
It is.
Murdering
regicide.
the king does not make you the king. I mean, sometimes it does, but generally speaking,
no. Yeah. But it's like it's pretty brutal, and in the eyes of the gods, this is a bad thing. So they can't really stand Iolcus. Jason and Medea are pretty much an item at this point. Mason, Judea, I don't know. More than one person has referred to them as having a Bonnie and Clyde kind of vibe.
Sure, I could see that. I mean, now they've killed royalty on like multiple continents now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so they got to get out of town then. If they're not the king, then you got to get out of here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So they get the hell out of Dodge again. This is another opportunity to drop in on Aunt Circe and say, hey, we need to be ritually purified.
Oops. Did it again.
Yeah.
Remember when I said I wasn't going to do that anymore?
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah. Did you get new glasses? You look great, Aunt Circe. Yeah. Now, sometimes committing a crime with another person is a great bonding experience. So I'm told. So Jason and Medea, they're a couple. They're on the run. They go to Corinth, which is in Greece, and another part of Greece. They think, okay, maybe we can make a new life for ourselves in Corinth. That works out for a while. They do settle down. Whoa, Jason and Medea settling down? Yeah. And they have kids. According to some sources, their names are Murmuros and Pheres. I feel like we should give them names, Now, you could just settle in Corinth and have a nice middle-class life, bicker with your neighbors from time to time.
Take your kids to soccer practice, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Ben, you mentioned earlier that Jason must have charisma. Like, he must have, plus a million charisma. Okay, so he rolls the dice and he gets a really high charisma roll. Somehow, he winds up attracting the attention of the royal family of Corinth.
Okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem too bad.
You'd think this would be a good thing. And for Jason, it is. The king of Corinth says, hey, Jason, would you like to marry my daughter, Creusa?
But isn't Jason already married to Medea?
You'd think.
Who has saved his ass on multiple occasions?
Yes.
From certain death many times?
Yeah. Jason says, yes, I would be delighted to marry Creusa. How do you think Medea responds?
So I do talk about, there's a chapter on Medea in the second Badass book. And so what Jason proposes, because Medea's mad. And what Jason proposes here is, no, it'll be great. I'll marry the princess of Corinth. I'll eventually become king of Corinth. I'll keep you around on the side. And then we can still kind of hang out. It'd be you and me and my millionaire princess wife. And then he offers her money. And the way the next chapter in the book says, I think I speak for most married men when I say that if I tried to pull a stunt like that on my wife, she would go on a berserker rampage that would make Medea's most ruthless escapades look like Malibu Barbie driving a pink Corvette through Candyland. That's kind of how that's the kind of the vibe I'm picturing here. And
you had that reference to Barbie.
I know.
Years before.
Way before 2009. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
That's why I felt like I had to quote myself here. Seems like a really weird thing to do, I guess, to quote yourself from a book, but I don't know. But I liked that line.
There's some weird Medea Barbie connection. Mm-hmm. And also you're putting your finger on exactly what's happening with Medea in this moment, which is that she is engulfed in white hot rage. Do you want to be on the bad side of Medea? No, you do not. I'm going to tell you.
That's a good way to get yourself chopped into pieces.
Yes. Okay. Now, the thing is, this is Medea. She's complicated. She's complex. She contains multitudes. She says, oh, okay, we're going to have one of those blended families. Okay. We're modern.
Polyfam, it's like a little before its time.
But also this is Greek mythology, so
maybe this happened.
And maybe she's pragmatic. Maybe she's like, oh, okay, yeah, this seems like actually in practical terms, if I don't think about labels, if I don't think about whatever, it's actually a pretty good situation.
But I just don't get the impression she's down for an open marriage.
No. In some very, very, very alternate universe, maybe, but in some very alternate timeline, but not this timeline.
Yes.
Not our Medea. No. So here's the thing. You and I, Ben, we know Medea. But Creusa, the princess of Corinth, how well does she know Medea really? Not really. So...
Uh-oh.
The night before her wedding, servants bring a package. Oh, Your Highness, this is a gift from Madame Medea. And Creusa says, oh, okay, well, golly, I mean, what a nice gesture. So she opens the package, she unwraps it. Oh my goodness, it's such a beautiful robe made of the finest material. Of course she has to try it on. It's the last robe she ever puts on. It's steeped in a poison that sets her on fire. She screams. Her father, the king of Corinth, runs in. Creusa, oh, you're on fire. He tries to, stop, drop, and roll, whatever. He tries to help put out the fire. He gets engulfed by the fire, too.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. R.I.P. the royal family of Corinth. Creusa does not survive.
Oh, man. So now she's killed 2 kings, a prince and a princess.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And more to the point, from Medea's point of view, she's killed Jason's new fiancée.
Yes.
Has Jason suffered enough? No, he has not.
Uh-oh. He has lost the favor of Hera.
He has, or the favor of Hera is not enough to stand up to the wrath of Medea.
Yes.
So Medea, she calls Murmuros and fairies over to her.
Oh,
These are the sons she has, Jason's sons. And most of the time, when a parent calls their kids over to them, you'd like to think that the parent is doing something in the best interests of the children. You'd like to think that the parent is saying, hey, kids, it's time for us to move on. Maybe, a normal, average, ordinary mortal, a mere mortal parent would say, hey, kids, I love you very much. Your father loves you very much, but, we need to separate. Or maybe just like, here, kids, have an iPad and some Twinkies. It's a rough day. Okay. This is Medea.
I just murdered the king. I'm going to have to go away for a while.
Yeah, I'm working on myself. Yeah. Yeah. What Medea does is she calls Murmuros and fairies over to her, mommy, and she kills them.
Yes. And so this is the thing about Medea that is problematic when you talk about her being a badass, because it's not badass to murder your children. But
no, no.
But for the purposes of this myth, number one, this is not a real story. These aren't real people. So there's that to consider, right? There are no actual dead children in the real world while we're telling the story. Number two, in some versions of the story, she doesn't kill them. So in certain versions of the story, she has given this robe. She's not there when Creusa and her dad get set on fire. So in certain versions of the story, she gives the robe to the princess. She puts it on. She catches on fire. Her dad tries to put her out. He catches on fire. Jason is there. He comes running in. He sees this. He's like, uh-oh, this is witchcraft. I'm not going to touch either of these people. He runs home to confront Medea. And as he arrives home, she's kind of taken off from the back porch, flying off into the night on a chariot pulled by dragons, and which is just awesome. But in some versions of the story, she's already killed the kids and she takes off. In other versions, the kids are still there, and the people of Corinth get angry at her and they kill her kids. In some versions of the story, she kills the kids because she can't take them with her and she's worried that the people of Corinth will kill them. So there's a number of reasons that are given here of, she's worried they're going to get enslaved and tortured. She's worried that, all kinds of bad things are going to happen to these children. So she kills them for their own good. And there's versions where she doesn't kill them at all and the people of Corinth do it. So like you said, it's not real and it's a myth, but it is a component of Medea.
Yeah, and I just went straight to the most gruesome version, the most distasteful version, because that's what Euripides did in his drama. So yeah. And Medea was ruthless. And at least in Euripides' version, that was her way of being ruthless. And I'm not endorsing this by any means, but it's a great story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do not mess with this person. She will
Do not
ruin
mess with
you.
Medea. Yeah. And years ago, in Berkeley, California, I got to see live stage production of Euripides' Medea featuring Fiona Shaw as Medea. And there was a little Q&A afterwards. In the play, they had, actual child actors playing the kids. And in the Q&A, someone asked Fiona Shaw and the other members of the production, so you've got Medea doing this really gruesome thing to kids. What is it like having actual kids in the production with such a gruesome thing? I guess the kids, apparently the child actors, when they had this explained to them that this was the type of story that they were going to be involved in, one of the kids was like, oh, so Medea is like our psycho mom. And I don't know what it says about us as a society or what it says about pop culture, but okay, the kids were like, okay, yeah, we know this kind of story. So, okay. So I'd like to think that those child actors were not scarred by playing kids who were,
I don't know. I always hear of actors talking about how they wish they had a cooler death, or they like to have cool death scenes and stuff. I imagine that's probably pretty fun to play, right? I've died a couple times on short films and stuff, and it's pretty fun. Yeah. And it was a pretty amazing production. Obviously, I still remember it after all these years. So that's Medea, and she, one way or another, she parts ways with Corinth. Not on the best of terms. And in a dragon chariot. I feel like that's an important thing we should talk about, is that there's...
And not just a dragon chariot, but a flying dragon chariot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like a really gruesome Santa Claus.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Chariot pulls by dragons, it flies. Where does she go, do we know?
Well, according to one version, she goes off to Athens. So she's just making her way westward. And she seeks asylum there. I mean, okay, if you killed your kids, okay, yes, you need to seek asylum. You need to seek some sort of expiation from the gods. I don't know. Whatever. She ends up in Athens. And somehow she manages to convince the king of Athens, Aegeus, to marry her.
She just keeps winning.
She, apparently, yeah, everything's coming up Medea. So Aegeus already had a son by another woman, and this son is Theseus, whom you may have heard of. He's the guy in the Minotaur myth, And a
ton of other myths after that. He's most famous for killing the Minotaur, but he's he's a big deal.
Oh, he's a total big deal, yeah. So you may not be surprised that, Medea tried to poison Theseus.
Of course, as you do.
Of course, as you do. But also, B, this was averted just in time. Aegeus notices that the cup Medea is offering Theseus is a little sus, and he's like, no.
Medea.
So yeah.
Again with this. Stop trying to set royalty on fire.
So yes, Theseus does live to go on and have exploits, So the thing is, trying to poison the son of the king. Do they want to keep her around? No, they do not. Medea thinks, okay, I think my time here is done. I'm going to move on. So she leaves in a huff and a chariot drawn by flying dragons. And that's the end of her time in Athens. She goes on to do other things. And there are various myths. None of them are as well developed as the ones we've been telling you. But Medea, she just kind of keeps on going.
Yeah. She flies off. She disappears in a cloud of smoke, flies off on a chariot pulled by flying dragons. There's some stories that say that she had a son with Theseus's dad, a kid named Maddest, who goes on to conquer a bunch of lands in the Middle East and found an empire, which he named Medea after himself, like Media, which is kind of a big deal because when the ancient Greeks talk about Medea, they're talking about Persia.
Yeah.
Like the Persian Empire of Darius the Great.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, there are a couple versions. I think in one of the versions, she goes home to Colchis and helps. Her dad had been usurped, and she helps him retake the throne and reconciles with him. There's a lot of different. There's a lot of different versions of what happens to her after this. What's generally agreed upon.
Medea multiverse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe she did all of these things. Maybe she only did a couple of them. Maybe who knows?
Yeah.
But it's generally accepted that nowadays she spends the afterlife in the Elysian Fields, which is the Greek version of heaven. She got into that somehow, probably by having Circe expiate her once over again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she becomes the wife of Achilles, as in like the greatest war hero, the most famous war hero in all of Greek mythology. And so it's going great for her. She's in heaven with Achilles, and that seems like it's probably working out pretty well for her. Jason.
How about Jason?
Well, Jason was winning when he had Medea, but after her, he doesn't really have much. His princess wife is dead. His kids are dead. He's alone and miserable. He goes on to, I will quote my book once more here when I say, Jason went on to live the short, boring, and lonely life of a tactless dumbass, and eventually kicked it when a piece of the Argo broke off and crushed him to death with irony. And that's what happens to Jason. He's miserable and alone and died because he didn't appreciate his wife enough. And that is the moral of the story.
Yes.
I think, or something.
Yes. Yeah, if you don't look into it too much.
Sure.
Yeah. Most spouses don't go around murdering people and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does happen, but it's not common.
Yeah, not common, no.
But
Okay.
also fear of that is not a great reason to stay in a relationship.
Yes.
It's complicated.
It's complicated.
Relationships are hard.
Yeah. Even when you don't have amazing sorceress abilities and potion knowledge and whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's Medea. She was a pretty badass sorceress who defeated many magical enemies and non-magical enemies. And anytime anybody wronged her, she overreacted with extreme violence. One thing with Medea is that with a lot of the things that she's doing, she's trying to help, right? She's trying to help out her friends, right? So she does have good intentions for a while until...
Yes. In a certain light, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But,
She wants to be part of the team.
She's part of the team, right? They couldn't have made it home without her. And Jason couldn't have gotten the golden fleece. He would have been incinerated by fire-breathing bulls if she hadn't been there.
Yes.
But that's Medea, and I love this myth. I think she's one of my like, I feel like the most badass mythological figures. She's just, her story's great, and I'm really glad that you were able to walk us through it today. That was really awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you for walking through with us.
Yes. And thanks to you all for listening to this episode. We really hope you'd enjoyed it. And we'd really we're really happy to have your support and look forward to seeing you on future episodes. Please do like and subscribe if you want to hear more of this stuff. And we're very happy to have you along for the ride with us. Thank you so much. And we will see you next week.
Stay badass.
Badass of the Week is an iHeartRadio podcast produced by High Five Content. Executive producers are Andrew Jacobs, me, Pat Larish, and my co-host, Ben Thompson. Writing is by me and Ben. Story editing is by Ian Jacobs, Brandon Phibbs. Mixing and music and sound design is by Jude Brewer. Special thanks to Noel Brown at iHeart. Badass of the Week is based on the website badassoftheweek.com, where you can read all sorts of stories about other badasses. If you want to reach out with questions, ideas, you can email us at badasspodcast@badassoftheweek.com. If you like the podcast, subscribe, follow, listen, and tell your friends and your enemies if you want, as we'll be back next week with another one. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.